Israel-based spyware developer NSO now responding to the latest controversy involving its Pegasus software. A massive leak of over 50,000 alleged targets of the invasive malware, including activists, journalists, government officials, political dissidents, world leaders, and even royalty. NSO's response, though, quote, that this list has nothing to do with us. Moreover, in a rare moment of open dialogue, NSO Chief Shalev Hulio saying that the unsourced list is itself suspect. Hulio explaining that NSO was contacted by several information brokers over a month ago who claimed to have evidence of the list being leaked from NSO servers in Cyprus. But Hulio says that no such servers exist, and that after reviewing the contents with NSO's clients, it became clear that this was an HLR lookup server that has nothing to do with NSO. Still, there's clearly much more to the story than meets the eye. And joining me now to discuss is legal counsel for the Israeli digital rights movement, attorney Jonathan Klinger. Jonathan, thank you so much for being with us. Now, let's assume that NSO is telling the truth. What are the steps to verifying NSO's theory? And what does this say about the evidence that the international press is publishing?
So there are two sides to this story. The first is NSO's side, which, by the way, may be true, but it doesn't mean that the other side is wrong. The HLR lookup could have came from any of NSO's clients or aggregated from a few clients, meaning that NSO specifically had no knowledge of this, but their clients were bad actors. Now, if someone abused NSO's systems, NSO most likely wouldn't have full control over this. The reason is because if I run a clandestine service, I wouldn't want an Israeli company to have full access to my spyware program and to my way of deploying it. Think of it. A lot of these governments, which some of them don't even have official diplomatic relationship with Israel, might say, I don't know if NSO has a mole working for the Israeli intelligence and looking out for Israel's interest while they help us. So if they had purchased some software for NSO, they most likely wanted to have something isolated without access to NSO inside. So NSO wouldn't be able to fully verify the claims on one hand. Also, both Amnesty and Citizen Lab showed the full verification process. They explained how they verified the claims. They took a number, I think it was a bit more than 60 phones from the people on that list, which is, of course, less than a fraction of a percent, but that's what they obtained. And around half of them were either with some presence or with attempted presence of spyware, which most likely could have been NSO, but this doesn't mean that it was from the government that these people reside in. As we saw yesterday in that list, there were French dignitaries, including Emmanuel Macron. However, they were not spied on by the French authorities, but by others, by people from, according to the publication yesterday, from Morocco, meaning that once I, as a country, even if I'm democratic or less than democratic, receive a copy of that software, I can track everyone worldwide, not just in my country.
All right, now whether the list leaked from NSO or not, NSO and Pegasus have been in a controversial spotlight for years. Analysts like Ben-Dror Yamini are calling NSO a black mark on Israel's startup resume and identity. The Israeli government has also now appointed a special team to look into how to handle the fallout of NSO's controversies, specifically allegations that Pegasus was abused by certain governments to target politicians, journalists, etc. Do you think that we need to enact heavy limits on the types of software that NSO sells and to whom, or even ban the sale of this type of software outright?
NSO is not alone here. Israel has a vast network of different companies that provide offensive cyber tools. NSO is just one of them. And NSO is working within the boundaries of Israeli law. The problem is that the regulators are not that concerned about it. And according to the articles in Haaretz and Ynet this morning, The government may have used NSO as a tool to promote relations with other countries. They stole them the ability to have this defensive or offensive tool in order to improve countries' security. And on the other hand, that way routed our diplomatic relations. Now, the problem is that NSO also has good uses. It may be used to stop pedophiles, terrorists, maybe drug dealers. Now, if I want a software that will harm bad people and stop them from committing crimes, I have to regulate how the software is used and not whether it's available or not available at all. In order to do that, we need to decide how we decide on who gets to have this. Would it be only liberal democracies, as I really prefer, with real safeguards and with real transparency? Or can we sell to, let's say, less than fully liberal democracies, countries like Hungary, which does have an official democratic regime, but is not that keen on civil rights? On the same way, we can see whether Brazil is such a democracy. Other countries like India, which is a full democracy with civil rights, may be great, but the problem is that we have to make sure that the NSO tool and similar tools may only be used inside the country that these security services purchase it for, meaning that I don't know if the person who spied on India was the Indian National Security Agency or someone else from another country. In order to make sure that this doesn't happen, NSO's tools need to be, let's say, reprogrammed to only allow countries to use it for inside their own boundaries.
All right, Jonathan Klinger, thank you so much.
Thank you again for inviting me over.